Have you ever noticed how some people seem to shrink as they age, not just physically, but in the space they allow themselves to occupy in the world? It's a quiet erosion that happens gradually, almost imperceptibly, until one day you realize you've been living your life for everyone except yourself. If you're over 70, or if you care deeply about someone who is, what I'm about to share could fundamentally change how you approach these precious years. Because contrary to what society might have you believe, reaching this stage of life doesn't mean surrendering your needs, your dreams, or your right to a fulfilling existence. Let me start with a truth that might make some people uncomfortable. You don't owe anyone your exhaustion. After 7 decades or more of contributing to this world, working tirelessly, raising families, building careers, and showing up for others countless times, you've earned something profoundly important: the right to rest without guilt, the right to simply be. Think about Walter, a 76-year-old gentleman I learned about recently. For years, his mornings were constantly interrupted by family members, expecting him to babysit, run errands, or handle various tasks that could honestly wait. He began each day already depleted, rushing from one obligation to another. His blood pressure climbed, his energy disappeared. But here's what changed everything. Walter decided his mornings before 10 o'clock were sacred. No phone calls, no requests. Just quiet time with his coffee, his newspaper, and his thoughts. The transformation was remarkable. Within weeks, his mood lifted, his energy returned, and interestingly enough, his family adjusted just fine without those early morning demands. This isn't about being selfish or uncaring. It's about understanding that rest and leisure are as essential to your health as medication or proper nutrition. Your body needs time to restore itself. Your mind requires moments of peace to process and rejuvenate. When you constantly sacrifice these fundamental needs for others, you're not being noble. You're setting yourself up for a cascade of health problems that could rob you of the very independence everyone claims they want you to maintain. Now, let's talk about something that might be even more uncomfortable but absolutely critical to address: your financial security. I cannot stress this enough. Never, under any circumstances, should you relinquish control over your financial resources, regardless of how persuasive or desperate the request might be. Not for your children, not for your grandchildren, not for anyone. Consider what happened to Harold, a 78-year-old retired teacher. His son needed help with a business venture and asked Harold to co-sign a loan. The son promised Harold wouldn't have to pay anything, that it was just a formality. Harold, wanting to support his child's dreams, signed those papers. 6 months later, the business failed, and Harold found himself legally responsible for thousands of dollars in debt. His retirement savings, carefully accumulated over decades, began evaporating. The stress triggered serious health complications. His blood pressure spiked. He developed anxiety that affected his sleep and appetite. The financial strain damaged not only his security but also his relationship with his son. Financial independence is your fortress. It protects your ability to make choices about your health care, your living situation, and your quality of life. Once you lose control of your money, you lose control of your freedom. When family members pressure you to lend money, invest in risky ventures, or hand over access to your accounts, they're asking you to gamble with the very foundation of your independence. Set clear budgets for what you can comfortably give without jeopardizing your security. Consult with financial advisors before making any significant decisions. And remember, a genuine emergency rarely allows time for manipulation tactics. If someone is pressuring you to act quickly, that alone should raise red flags. This connects directly to something equally vital: your boundaries and personal space. Just because you're retired doesn't mean you're available around the clock. Just because you have more free time doesn't mean others are entitled to it. Your home, your schedule, and your personal boundaries deserve protection. Edith, an 84-year-old widow, found herself hosting relatives every weekend for months. They arrived with bags of laundry, brought their children expecting her to entertain them, and stayed late into the evening. Edith felt trapped in her own home. She was exhausted. Her routines were disrupted, and she had no time for the activities that brought her joy. Finally, after a particularly overwhelming weekend, she decided enough was enough. She called a family meeting and explained that she loved seeing everyone but needed advance notice and limits on visit duration. Some family members were initially offended, but Edith held firm. Within a few weeks, visits became more manageable, and Edith reclaimed the peace and energy she desperately needed. Boundaries aren't walls that shut people out, they're guidelines that help relationships remain healthy and sustainable. When you set boundaries, you're teaching others how to respect you. You're modeling self-care that future generations desperately need to learn. Speak up when requests feel overwhelming. Say no without lengthy explanations or apologies. A simple, kind, but firm response is enough. Your comfort and well-being in your own home should never be negotiable. Let me address something that might sound obvious, but is frequently sacrificed nonetheless. Your health and well-being must remain your top priority. This means keeping medical appointments even when family events conflict. This means taking your medications on schedule regardless of who needs your attention. This means getting adequate sleep, eating properly, and engaging in physical activity appropriate for your condition. Margaret, an 81-year-old grandmother, had been faithfully attending physical therapy twice weekly after hip surgery. Her recovery was progressing beautifully. Then her granddaughter asked if Margaret could watch her great-grandchildren a few days each week. Margaret, wanting to help and fearing she'd be seen as unhelpful, agreed and stopped attending therapy sessions. Within 2 months, her mobility declined significantly. The pain returned. What should have been a full recovery turned into permanent limitation. Margaret's attempt to be helpful actually increased her dependence on others, the exact opposite of what everyone wanted. Your health is not a luxury you postpone for convenient moments, it's the foundation supporting everything else in your life. When you neglect your well-being to accommodate others, you're not just harming yourself, you're potentially creating a situation where you'll require even more care and assistance down the road. Schedule your health needs as non-negotiable appointments. Communicate clearly with family about your medical requirements. Don't skip medications, meals, or rest periods because someone needs something from you. Taking care of yourself is taking care of everyone who loves you because it preserves your independence and vitality. This brings us to something deeply personal yet frequently challenged: your autonomy and right to make your own decisions. At 70 or beyond, you remain the expert on your own life. You know what makes you comfortable. You understand your needs, preferences, and values. Yet, family members often feel entitled to override your choices, sometimes with good intentions, but harmful results nonetheless. Robert, an 80-year-old widower, loved his small home where he'd lived for 40 years. His children insisted he should sell it and move to a retirement community closer to them. They meant well, concerned about his safety living alone. But Robert thrived in his familiar environment. He knew every neighbor, his routines were established, his independence flourished there. After months of pressure, Robert finally stood his ground. He explained that he appreciated their concern but would make his own decisions about where to live. He agreed to some safety modifications in his home and regular check-ins, but the home remained his. His confidence soared from asserting this boundary. His depression, which had been building during the pressure campaign, lifted. Your life belongs to you. Not to your children, however well-meaning they might be, not to your caregivers or medical professionals, certainly not to societal expectations about how older adults should live. You have every right to make choices about your living situation, your social activities, your healthcare decisions, and your daily routines. When family members try to control these aspects of your life, even with loving intentions, gently but firmly remind them that you're still capable of making informed decisions. Seek their input if you want it, but make clear that the final decision rests with you. Your autonomy is not something to surrender as you age. It's something to protect fiercely. Now let's discuss something that profoundly impacts your emotional and physical health: your social connections and joyful relationships. Maintaining friendships and social activities outside your family circle isn't optional. It's essential medicine for your mind, heart, and even your body. Research consistently shows that strong social connections contribute to longevity, cognitive health, and emotional resilience. Martha, an 83-year-old woman, cherished her weekly church group where she'd formed deep friendships over decades. When her daughter moved closer and began expecting Martha to babysit every week on the same day as her group, Martha faced a difficult choice. Initially, she sacrificed her social time to help with childcare. Within months, she felt isolated and depressed. She missed the laughter, the meaningful conversations, the sense of belonging her group provided. Eventually, Martha explained to her daughter that she needed to maintain this important social connection. They worked out an alternative childcare arrangement. Martha's mood improved dramatically once she resumed her weekly gatherings. The people you choose to spend time with, the activities that bring you joy, the friendships that nourish your spirit, these aren't frivolous extras to abandon when family needs arise. They're vital components of your health and happiness. Defend your right to maintain these connections. Resist pressure to isolate yourself or sever relationships that bring you fulfillment. Your social world is yours to design, and the energy and optimism it provides benefit everyone around you. Something else deserves fierce protection: your sense of purpose and identity. You are not defined solely by your age or your role in other people's lives. Your passions, interests, goals, and dreams remain valid regardless of how many birthdays you've celebrated. Yet society often pressures older adults to shrink their ambitions, abandon their pursuits, and settle into a narrow definition of what aging should look like. Sam, an 81-year-old retired carpenter, loved woodworking in his garage workshop. He created beautiful furniture pieces and mentored young people interested in learning the craft. His family worried he'd injure himself with the tools and pressured him to give up this passion. Sam felt crushed. Woodworking wasn't just a hobby. It was central to his identity and sense of purpose. After much reflection, Sam decided to continue with some reasonable safety modifications. He installed better lighting, organized his workspace to minimize hazards, and agreed to work only when someone was home. But he refused to abandon what made him feel alive and useful. His mental sharpness, his enthusiasm for life, his sense of meaning, all remained strong because he protected this core part of himself. Whatever brings you purpose, whether it's a hobby, volunteer work, continued learning, creative pursuits, or even a small business, protect it. Don't let others convince you that you're too old to pursue your interests, or that you should spend your remaining years doing nothing but waiting. Your identity and purpose are what keep your mind engaged and your spirit vibrant. They're not luxuries to sacrifice for others' convenience. Let's address something fundamental that should never require defending, yet often does: your right to dignity and respect. At every age, in every interaction, you deserve to be treated with respect. Your opinions matter. Your preferences count. Your feelings are valid. Unfortunately, older adults frequently face subtle or overt disrespect that chips away at self-worth and confidence. Helen, an 85-year-old woman with decades of life experience and wisdom, noticed her grandson consistently speaking to her in a condescending tone, as if she were a child. He made decisions about family gatherings without consulting her, dismissed her suggestions with patronizing comments, and often spoke about her in the third person while she sat right there. Helen finally addressed this behavior directly. She calmly but firmly told her grandson that his tone and treatment were disrespectful and unacceptable. The conversation was uncomfortable, but necessary. Her grandson hadn't realized how his behavior appeared, and after this discussion, their relationship improved significantly. You should never tolerate disrespect, whether it comes from family members, healthcare providers, service workers, or anyone else. Your age doesn't diminish your right to courteous treatment. When someone speaks to you condescendingly, interrupts you constantly, ignores your clearly stated wishes, or treats you as invisible, address it. You can be kind but firm. You don't need to accept dismissive behavior simply to keep the peace. Your dignity is non-negotiable, and standing up for it actually strengthens your confidence and self-respect. Finally, and perhaps most importantly, protect your hope for the future. This might sound abstract, but it's profoundly practical. Hope is what motivates you to take care of your health. Hope is what inspires you to maintain relationships and pursue interests. Hope is what makes you look forward to tomorrow instead of merely enduring today. Ruth, a 79-year-old widow, felt her world had ended when her husband passed away. Family members, trying to be realistic, discouraged her from making any major changes or pursuing new interests. But Ruth felt something stirring inside her, a long dormant desire to paint. Despite skepticism from others who thought she should just focus on not being lonely, Ruth enrolled in a painting class. That decision transformed her life. She discovered genuine talent and passion. She made new friends. She had exhibitions of her work. Her remaining years became filled with color, creativity, and joy she'd never experienced before. Hope isn't naive optimism. It's the belief that possibilities still exist, that tomorrow might bring something wonderful, that your story isn't finished. When you maintain hope, you remain engaged with life. You continue learning, growing, and experiencing. External voices might suggest it's too late to dream or make plans, but those voices are wrong. As long as you're breathing, you have the right to hope, to anticipate, to imagine positive futures. So here's what I want you to understand deeply. Protecting these 9 areas of your life, your right to rest, your financial security, your boundaries, your health, your autonomy, your social connections, your sense of purpose, your dignity, and your hope, this isn't selfishness. This is survival. This is the foundation for living your remaining years with joy, independence, and meaning rather than slowly disappearing into everyone else's needs and expectations. You've spent decades caring for others, contributing to the world, and meeting expectations. Now is the time to honor yourself with the same dedication you've shown others. Set those boundaries, protect your resources, maintain your friendships, pursue your passions, demand respect, hold on to hope. These aren't luxuries. They're necessities for a life well lived at any age. I want you to take a moment right now to reflect on which of these 9 pillars needs your immediate attention. Is your financial security at risk because of family pressure? Have you abandoned social connections that once brought you joy? Are you exhausted because you never allow yourself true rest? Identify the area that resonates most strongly and make one small change this week to protect it. Just one boundary, one conversation, one decision that puts your well-being first. And please, share this message with someone who needs to hear it. Whether you send this to a friend navigating similar challenges or share it with younger family members who need to understand these principles, spreading this understanding helps create a world where aging is met with dignity rather than diminishment. Leave a comment below telling me which of these 9 areas you're committing to protect. Your story might be exactly what someone else needs to find the courage to reclaim their own life. Because at 70 and beyond, you haven't finished living. You've just earned the wisdom to do it on your own terms.